Story 1. People always ask why I moved out of 4C after only 3 months. I usually tell them it was the rent hike or the noisy neighbors, but that's not why. I don't even like saying this out loud because it still makes my skin crawl. But I'm gonna try. I moved into that apartment in early 2002. Old brick building in Cleveland, just east of downtown. Real pre-war place. Wooden floors, plaster walls, creaky radiators that bang like someone's knocking from inside them. I'd just broken up with someone and wanted to live alone for the first time. The landlord told me the building had character. Should have been a red flag. The place didn't feel outright haunted, at least not right away. The living room was cozy. The kitchen had those old porcelain sinks that look like they belong in a movie. It was the bedroom that got me. The first time I walked in there, I remember saying, "Feels weird in here." Not scary, not exactly, just heavy, like the air didn't move right. The closet didn't have a door when I moved in, just a curtain that someone had pushed off to the side. That first night, I couldn't sleep unless I pinned that curtain shut with a chair. After a couple of weeks, I convinced myself I was being dramatic. Old places creak. Old wiring makes weird noises. It's fine. I even started sleeping with the bedroom door unlocked again. But there was one thing I never did. I never looked too far into the closet. It was just dark. Not dark like no light bulb. Dark. Dark like no light wanted to go in there. One time I leaned in to grab a bag I'd tossed in and swear to God, I heard this faint gasping sound, like someone out of breath. I snapped upright and backed out of that room like a damn cartoon. Then there was the night it happened. It was sometime after 2 a.m. I remember because I glanced at the clock before I passed out. I'd been asleep maybe an hour when I jolted awake to a sound I still can't explain. Not a knock, not a creak. It was a bang, like a fist slamming the center of my bedroom door. I sat up, heart pounding so fast I felt sick. I waited, held my breath. Nothing. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. After maybe a minute, I grabbed the bat I kept beside the bed and crept toward the door. Still locked. Chain still on. I opened it and scanned the apartment. Kitchen empty. Bathroom empty. Every window locked. No one there. I told myself maybe something fell. Maybe it was the radiator again. But I started locking the bedroom door again after that. And the closet curtain, I nailed it shut. But that wasn't the incident. That was just the start. The real thing, the thing that made me move out, happened a few weeks later. I was asleep, like really out cold, when something pushed me awake. That's not a figure of speech. I felt it. Hands or weight, or something pressing down on my chest and shoulders, like someone trying to keep me pinned to the mattress. I woke up mid-breath, eyes wide open, and I couldn't move. Couldn't scream. Couldn't even turn my head. I thought maybe I was having sleep paralysis. I'd read about it, I knew what it was. But then I felt the breath. Not mine. Hot, right against my face. I couldn't see anything. Room was pitch black, but I knew someone was there. Standing over me. Leaning down. Breathing. I couldn't even close my eyes. I was stuck there. Staring up into nothing. And then I heard it. Just one word. Right up against my ear, whispered in this dry, gasping voice like someone drowning. "Don't." I don't know how I broke out of it, but I did. My body snapped like a rubber band, and I rolled sideways and slammed on the lamp. Light hit the room, and I swear, I saw something. Not a person, not a shape, just a corner of the curtain over the closet. Moving. It was moving, like something had just slipped behind it. I sat there for probably an hour. Didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared at that damn closet until the sun came up. By 9 a.m., I was packing boxes. Didn't call the landlord. Didn't explain. I didn't even tell my friends the real reason. I just said I couldn't get comfortable there. That's it. But the truth is, I couldn't stay. Not after that. Story 2, I went to university in a dull little town in the Midlands. Not much to do except drink, smoke, and find ways to not lose your mind. I shared a flat in student accommodation with two of my best mates, Danny and Tom. We were second years then, a bit jaded but still clinging to the buzz of being young and out of our parents' homes. It was maybe midnight on a Friday when we realized we were out of booze. We weren't hammered, just nicely on the way. No corner shops were open by then, so our only option was the 24-hour Tesco about a mile away. That meant a walk through endless rows of suburban housing estates, identical cul-de-sacs, boxy houses with tiny gardens, barely any streetlights. It always felt like walking through a clone neighborhood. Dead silent, too. Like people weren't just asleep. They didn't exist. We didn't even talk much on the way there. Just the odd laugh or complaint about the cold. It was mid-autumn, mist hanging low, that kind that makes everything look a little fuzzy under the orange glow of the lamps. We got our cheap beer, a bottle of rum, and started heading back. Somewhere around halfway home, we passed this open space, what looked like a massive field. I swear that space hadn't been there before, just appeared. But we didn't really question it at the time because, well, there was a lot going on. It looked like a party, not like a student party though. There was a huge fire in the middle of the field. Horses were moving around it in slow circles, riders in what looked like cloaks or robes. There were lanterns hanging off what I think were sticks jammed into the ground, casting this kind of flickering light over everything. A woman sat cross-legged by the fire playing a violin, slow and sad, and someone else was banging a drum in rhythm with the hooves. None of us said anything at first. We just walked past, silent. You'd think we'd have laughed or made a comment, but we didn't. Not even a joke. It was like something about it told us to just keep going. It took 5 minutes for any of us to speak. "What the hell was that?" Danny finally said. I stopped walking. "You saw the fire, right?" Tom turned around. "You saw the horses, yeah?" We all just stood there for a second. Then we decided to go back. No reason not to. We were curious, and it didn't feel scary exactly. Just weird. Out of place. That kind of weird you feel in your chest but don't know why. We turned back down the road, walked maybe 2 minutes, and there was nothing. No field. Just houses. Just more of the same cookie-cutter homes we'd been walking past for weeks. Same hedges, same fences, no open space, no fire, no people, no music, no horses. We kept walking, checking the next street over, and the next. Nothing. We even counted our steps to the corner and tried to retrace exactly where we'd been, thinking maybe we got turned around. But the layout didn't change. Every street ended in more houses. "It was right here," Tom kept saying, tapping his foot against the curb. "Right here." Danny started laughing, the kind of laugh you do when you're unsettled. "What the fuck is going on?" "There was a woman with a violin," I said quietly. "She was looking at us." They both stopped. Neither of them had mentioned anyone looking at us until then. Danny cleared his throat. One of them, Riders, he turned his horse to face us, just stood there, like waiting. "Yeah," said Tom, like they knew we were watching. None of us had said a word about that before. I pulled out my phone and checked the map. We were exactly where we thought we were. That field never existed. There were no open spaces marked, no parks, no schools, just more suburban gridlock. We walked home faster after that. Not quite running, but close. I kept looking over my shoulder. Every hedge looked like it was hiding something. Every flickering porch light looked like a torch being carried. And every sound, wind, a dog barking, felt like it had meaning. Story 3. I worked the night shift at a downtown office in Nashville, 16th floor of a plain old financial building. It's one of those brutalist concrete setups from the 70s, all gray walls and humming fluorescent lights, like the place forgot what sunlight feels like. I'm usually the last one on my floor by 9 p.m., maybe earlier if the others duck out early. I do IT support, mostly patching up servers and responding to nonsense tickets that could have waited till morning. Quiet work. I don't mind it. The men's bathroom's just down the hall from my cubicle. 4 urinals, 4 stalls, one of them the handicap one at the end. It's a heavy steel door with a spring hinge, and when it closes, you hear it, like a thud that echoes down the hall. You can't mistake it. It's the kind of door that lets you know when someone's come in, even if you've got headphones on. That night was dead quiet. No cleaning crew yet. No footsteps. No talking. I hadn't seen anyone in over an hour. Around 10:15 or so, I felt that stomach shift. Figured I'd take a quick break in the stall, clear my head, get back to patching the backup logs. I grabbed my phone, walked down the hall, and pushed open the bathroom door. Empty. No feet under the stalls, no sounds, nothing. I checked instinctively, not because I was scared, just habit. I like privacy. I took the second stall from the left, same one I always used, and sat down. I remember scrolling through Reddit, probably half asleep when I heard it. Someone started peeing into one of the urinals. Clear as day. That distant splash, steady stream, the kind of sound you just know. The weird thing was, I hadn't heard the door open. I froze, didn't breathe. My first thought was, did I zone out that hard? But I was facing the stall door, and I know that door never opened. It's way too loud. There's no chance someone came in without me noticing. But I stayed quiet. You know that feeling when your body registers something before your mind catches up? Like your skin goes cold and tight? That was me. I leaned forward just a bit, peeking through the thin crack between the stall door and the hinge. I could see the row of urinals, just enough. No one was there, but the sound kept going, full stream, as if someone was standing inches from the porcelain. Then it tapered off like someone finishing up. I didn't hear a zipper or the flush, just a few footsteps, slow ones, 2 or 3 steps across the tile. Then silence. Still no door, still no flush. I stayed frozen on the seat, staring at the bottom of the stall divider like it might explain what the hell just happened. My heart was pounding, and I had that sick, pressing weight in my chest like I was about to pass out. I waited a full minute. Nothing. Not a single sound. Eventually, I stood up and flushed, more for normalcy than anything else. I opened the stall door slowly, stuck my head out. Empty. I walked to the urinals. Dry. I looked under all the stalls. Nothing. I even stepped out into the hallway to check if maybe someone had slipped out without a sound. The hallway was still. My cubicle light was the only thing still on. That door hadn't opened. There's no other exit in that bathroom, no maintenance hatch, no vent big enough. And yet, someone had been peeing right next to me for almost 30 seconds. I stood there for maybe 5 more minutes, just staring at the bathroom like it owed me an answer. That was 3 months ago. I haven't used that bathroom since. I take the elevator down to the lobby now, every time. Doesn't matter if I'm the only one on the floor or not. I don't care how inconvenient it is, because I know what I heard, and I know no one walked in. Story 4. I live in Dundee now, but this happened when I was 11. We'd gone up north for a short family trip. My mom, dad, sister, and me. Fort William. Beautiful place if you've never been. Surrounded by mountains. Kind of quiet, kind of eerie even on the sunniest days. It wasn't winter, so no snow or skiing, but we went for the hiking. Just a couple of easy trails. A 2-night stay in one of those old Highland hotels that feels like it's been sitting there since before electricity. I don't remember the name of the hotel. I'm not even sure it still exists. It was one of those places with floral wallpaper, carpets that muted every footstep, and the kind of thick wooden doors that shut with a heavy clunk. We all stayed in one room. I had a single bed near the window, my sister had one across the room, and my parents were between us in a double. The room smelled like dust and old radiators, the kind of place you'd half expect to find a Bible in the drawer and a bell in the hallway you pull for room service. It felt old. The moment I walked in, I got this weird feeling, like the air was thicker. I didn't say anything, though. I was a nervous kid, scared of the dark, scared of silence, scared of basically everything I couldn't see. That first night, I remember not being able to sleep. I was lying on my back, eyes closed, counting in my head, trying not to let my imagination get the better of me. I kept telling myself nothing was there, just the wind outside, maybe a creaky pipe or floorboard, the usual stuff. But then something happened. I felt the bed sink. Not the way it does when you roll over, not something subtle. It dipped near my feet, a sudden weight, like someone had sat down at the foot of the bed. The mattress gave a loud, slow creak. I stopped breathing. I thought maybe my sister had come over, maybe needed something, but I hadn't heard anyone get up. No footsteps, no shuffling. Then the weight shifted. It moved over my feet, sat on them. I swear to you, I could feel it. This heavy pressure, like someone just calmly settled themselves right on top of them. My feet went instantly cold. Not like a draft. It was like they'd been dunked in ice water. I couldn't move them. I couldn't even wiggle my toes. I remember clenching my jaw so hard it hurt. I kept telling myself it had to be my imagination, but then the mattress creaked again. The exact same sound. Closer this time, like it was moving along the bed toward me. And then the cold started climbing. I could feel it, literally feel it. This freezing pressure moving up my legs. It wasn't just cold. It was dead cold. A kind of cold that felt like it didn't belong in this world. My legs felt crushed under invisible weight, like something was pushing down on them slowly, deliberately. I wanted to scream. I really did. But I couldn't get a sound out. I couldn't open my eyes. My hands were clenched so tight they'd gone numb. I remember thinking, if I look at it, it'll become real. If I don't, maybe it'll stop. It didn't stop. The cold was past my knees by then. I remember feeling tears run down the sides of my face. My breathing was shaky, shallow. I thought I was going to faint. I kept trying to force a word out, anything, just mum or help, but it was like my throat was locked. Eventually, I don't know how, I forced out this broken, panicked cry, "Mum!" Everything snapped into motion. The lights came on almost instantly. Dad fumbled for the switch, confused, half asleep. My sister sat up straight, startled. My mum turned to me asking what was wrong. The second the room lit up, the feeling vanished. Not faded, vanished, no cold, no pressure. My legs were just there, numb but normal. The bed was still slightly warm near my feet, like someone had just gotten up. But there was no one. No one had moved. I was shaking. I didn't even try to explain it. I just said I was scared. My mum pulled me into the double with her and held me, and I didn't sleep. I lay there the entire night, eyes wide, staring at the ceiling, waiting for it to come back. It didn't. But I refused to sleep in that bed again. The next night, my dad offered to switch. He laughed it off. "Just bad dreams," he said. "Old beds creak. You imagined it." Maybe I did, but he didn't sleep well either. He didn't say anything. Not the next morning, not ever. But I remember waking up around 5 a.m. and seeing him sitting on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, just staring at the wall. He didn't notice me watching. I've thought about that night more times than I can count. I've tried to come up with explanations. Sleep paralysis? Maybe, but I wasn't asleep. Hallucination? Possibly. But then there was the weight, the cold, the pressure. The bed physically moved. I didn't imagine that. I never found out the history of that hotel. I never asked. Story 5. I grew up in a quiet part of northern Wisconsin, about 20 minutes outside of Ashland, in one of those older split-level homes built in the late 70s. My family still lives there, tucked between pine trees and endless county roads, the kind of place where nothing ever really happens. We weren't the type of family to believe in ghosts or any of that kind of stuff. I sure as hell didn't. Not until that day. It happened about 4 years ago, early November. I was 22, commuting to a construction job in town while still living at home to save money. That day I had a flat tire in the morning, swapped it for the spare, and after my shift ended around 3, I stopped home to grab the other tires from the garage so I could get them changed out before winter really hit. My sister was away at school in Minneapolis, and both of my parents were working late. I knew I'd be the only one home for a while. I pulled into the driveway, ran inside, changed into jeans, and grabbed the tires from the garage. I didn't notice anything weird when I went in. Just the usual stuff. The kitchen light was off. The place was quiet. The garage smelled like old oil and sawdust. I loaded the tires into my truck, drove to the local garage, and killed a couple hours while they did the swap. When I got back home, it was dark, close to 6. I remember kicking snow off my boots on the porch, then unlocking the front door. I stepped into the hallway and froze. Right there in the center of the hallway, facing the front door like it had been waiting for me, was a metal folding chair, just sitting there, not one of ours. I knew every piece of furniture in that house. This chair looked cheap and kind of scratched up, like one you'd see at a church basement bingo night. Thin legs, brown seat. I just stood there staring at it for a second. I didn't feel scared exactly, more thrown off, confused. "Mom?" I called out, even though I already knew she wasn't home. Nothing. I picked up the chair, figuring maybe Dad had picked it up somewhere and forgot to put it away. But I still thought it was weird. Why would he leave it right in the middle of the hallway? I carried it into the garage and leaned it against the wall next to his workbench. I even brushed a little snow off my boots before I went back in. That's how normal I was trying to make it feel. Later that night, my mom got home. She came in through the garage, same as always, and I didn't even think about the chair until she was making dinner. I was at the table scrolling through my phone when I asked, "Hey, did you or Dad buy a folding chair or something?" She glanced over. "What kind of chair?" "Just like a metal folding chair. Brown, cheap looking. It was in the hallway when I got home." She frowned. "What do you mean it was in the hallway?" I told her the whole thing, how it was right there facing the door, how I put it in the garage. She shook her head. "We don't have any metal chairs. We've never owned any like that." I stared at her for a second. "You sure?" She gave me this weird look. "Why would we have a folding chair? We've got dining chairs, the lawn chairs in the shed. That's it." That's when something started to feel off, like truly off. I got up, said, "Come here, I'll show you," and led her into the garage. No chair. I walked to the corner by the workbench and pointed. It was right there. I leaned it against the wall. There was nothing. I looked around the garage like maybe it had fallen or something, but there was no sign of it. I even checked behind the trash bins, behind the snowblower, in the back near the water heater. Nothing. "Okay, you're messing with me," I said, turning back to her. But my mom's face was pale. She wasn't messing with me. "Are you sure you saw it?" "I'm positive, Mom." She didn't say anything. She just walked back into the house kind of slowly, and I followed her. That night, I kept thinking about how the chair had been facing the front door, like someone had placed it there and sat in it, waiting, or watching. The more I replayed it in my head, the more wrong it felt. The chair was dead center in the hallway. It wasn't off to the side. It hadn't been bumped into place by accident. It was placed there. I didn't sleep well that night. Every time the house creaked or the wind picked up outside, I'd jolt awake and look toward the hallway, half expecting to see that thing sitting there again. But it never came back. I told my dad about it the next morning, and he thought it was weird, but he figured I must have just seen something and misremembered. Maybe it was one of the neighbors dropping it off. Maybe I imagined the whole thing. I know how it sounds. But I wasn't drunk, I wasn't high, and I wasn't sleep deprived. I know what I saw. I carried the thing. I even went back through our garage security footage, thinking maybe I'd see myself coming in with it. But it didn't catch that angle. Just the outside door. We never found that chair. We don't know where it came from, or how it got inside. No windows were broken, no doors unlocked. Nothing else was missing or moved. Just that one single chair that shouldn't have been there. I don't have some big dramatic ending for this story. That chair was there, and then it wasn't. Story 6. We lived in this old house, the kind that creaked when the wind blew and had that damp, musty smell that stuck to everything. My mom always said it was character, but I never liked it. It was the kind of house that looked normal from the outside, but felt like it had secrets inside. I didn't understand what was going on at the time, but looking back now, I realized something had been off about that place from the moment we moved in. One afternoon, I remember my mom cleaning my little brother's room. He was still a baby, and I was at school, so it was just her in the house. She had been doing chores like usual, vacuuming, dusting, nothing unusual. But then out of nowhere, all of his toys started turning on. At first, it was just one or two, the usual plastic noises from his noisy, obnoxious electronic toys. But then all of them went off at once. Now here's where it gets really weird. Two of them didn't even have batteries in them. My mom was the type who kept everything organized, so she knew for a fact those toys were dead. She thought maybe there was some kind of short circuit, But when she went over to check, she found that all of them were fine. She said she was trying to ignore it, chalking it up to maybe some kind of malfunction. But then it happened again, almost like the toys were responding. The noises got louder, like they were almost in sync with each other. The lights on them flickered. I can still hear the panic in her voice when she called me. She didn't want to freak me out, but she was already terrified. Something's wrong with the toys, she told me. Her voice was shaking, like she was trying to convince herself it was just a coincidence. I didn't take it seriously at first, thinking maybe she was overreacting. I was a kid, and I didn't understand why she'd be so scared over a bunch of toys. But when I came home, it was a different story. She had us all camp out in the living room, not even in the bedrooms. She didn't want my little brother alone in his room. She said she just had a bad feeling. I remember my brother laughing at first, thinking it was fun. But after a while, even he started getting uncomfortable. He kept asking why we were all sleeping on the floor in the living room. Mom kept saying it was just for a little while, but I could see the fear in her eyes. We stayed in the living room for 3 days. I'd lie there in the dark, trying to sleep, but all I could think about were those toys, blinking and buzzing by themselves. Even my brother seemed to sense something wasn't right. On the third day, when we finally decided to go back to our rooms, it happened again, just like before. One by one, the toys turned on, but this time they didn't stop. The noise got so loud, the plastic sounds almost deafening. And the worst part? The two toys that had no batteries in them, they started playing their songs, their lights flashing like they were brand new. It was like they were alive. There was no logical explanation for it. I've never been able to shake that feeling, like the toys were trying to tell us something. It was wrong, like we weren't supposed to be there. Mom didn't want to stay there after that. We moved shortly after, and she never talked about it again. She just wouldn't. I never really understood why until now. Story 7. It was my first duty station, and I was stationed in a barracks on the outskirts of a military base in the middle of nowhere. After finishing all the initial training and some classes, I found myself stuck in the rear echelon with a bunch of other guys who were waiting to deploy. It wasn't glamorous, but it wasn't horrible either. I got assigned a room and figured I'd settle in. The first 3 days were uncomfortable, to say the least. I had stuff happening that I couldn't explain. Small things mostly, but enough to make me uneasy. My gear wasn't where I left it. I'd lock things up, come back, and find drawers wide open. The microwave in the kitchenette would turn on by itself. Little things like that, the kind of stuff that you could chalk up to paranoia, or maybe someone messing with you. But it kept happening, and it made the air in the room feel a little heavier, like it was pressing down on me. I wasn't alone for long, though. My roommate, a guy I had trained with and gotten to know, showed up on the fourth day. I wasted no time telling him that someone had been messing with our things. He didn't seem too fazed, but I could tell he wasn't completely comfortable either. We locked everything up, secured our gear, and went to bed early. PT came at 0530, so there wasn't much time to sleep. I woke up at around 0100. My blanket had fallen off the bed, and I was freezing. Odd, considering it was summer in the south, and the air should have been warm. I got up to grab it, and that's when I saw it. The armoire was wide open. I wasn't sure if I had left it like that, but I was too tired to think about it too much. I closed it, locked it, and went back to bed. I fell back asleep easily enough, but then it happened again. This time I woke up at 0230. My room was a mess, gear scattered everywhere, both mine and my roommates. I wasn't sure if we had been robbed or if someone was just messing with us, but it was too much to ignore. I woke my roommate up, and we both started cleaning up the mess. Whoever was doing this wasn't being subtle. We locked everything up again and tried to get back to sleep. I don't think either of us felt completely safe, but we were too exhausted to stay awake much longer. It wasn't long before I woke up a third time. This time, it was 0337. But this time, things were different. I could hear my roommate snoring, so I knew it wasn't him. I sat up, trying to get my bearings. The room was dark, but there was a faint light coming from the kitchenette. I froze. In the light, I saw someone standing there, rummaging through the fridge like it was any normal night. My heart pounded in my chest. I didn't know who it was, but I knew something wasn't right. I rubbed my eyes, trying to clear the fog in my brain. It took a second for my eyes to adjust, but when they did, I could make out the soldier's gear. He had a flashlight mounted on his shoulder, an L-shaped one, the kind we all carried. He had the standard combat boots, an Alice pack, and canteens strapped to his sides. He was dressed like he was ready for combat. But then I saw his face, or what was left of it. Half of his head was gone. I don't know how to explain it. There wasn't just a wound. It was as if his entire skull had been blasted away, blown off by something catastrophic. His helmet was gone, leaving a raw, jagged edge where his face should have been. The exposed, mangled flesh was a nightmare I couldn't shake, even as I watched him move. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I just sat there, frozen in place, watching him. My heart was beating so hard I thought it might explode. I wanted to say something, but nothing came out. He moved with a purpose, never once acknowledging my presence. He closed the fridge and started walking across the room, keeping his bright green eyes locked on me. The chill in the room hit me again, and I realized I was shaking, my breath coming in short, shallow bursts. He reached the door, opened it without a sound, and stepped out. As he did, he turned back towards me, and for a moment our eyes met. "Be safe," he said, in a voice that sounded far too calm for the situation. The door clicked shut behind him, and I was left in silence. I don't know how much time passed after that. I couldn't get my legs to move. I don't remember if I ever went back to sleep that night. I just sat there staring at the door, trying to process what had just happened. The next morning I had to act like everything was normal. I told my roommate what happened, but he didn't believe me. Hell, I barely believed myself. I didn't tell anyone else either. I didn't think anyone would understand. I stayed in that room for another week before I got reassigned. I don't know if the soldier I saw was a ghost, a hallucination, or something else entirely. But I know what I saw, and I know it wasn't just a dream. Story 8. It was a regular Friday night, or at least it started that way. I'd just gotten off work, and like any other night, I felt the urge to go out for a snack. Nothing special, but the idea of driving to the 24-hour grocery store just hit me. My mom was already in bed, and my brother wasn't home, so it was just me in the house. We lived there for 7 years in that old house on the corner, but strange things had always happened there. Nothing terribly alarming, but enough to make you uneasy. There were times when the house would feel off. I've heard the soft murmurs of voices at night, seen shadows dart out of the corner of my eye, and once I even saw what looked like someone sticking their head around the doorframe when no one was there. But it was the feeling outside at night that always made my skin crawl. My mom and I both felt it, the sensation that something or someone was watching us when we stood out front after dark. It wasn't just the typical unease you get at night. This was something heavier, colder. It felt like there was something there with us and it didn't want us there. That night, as I stepped out onto the porch to head to my car, I saw something move in the corner of my vision. I stopped dead in my tracks, my heart starting to race. It was tall, so tall. I couldn't even tell how tall, because it seemed like it was just floating, hanging in the air. The only way I can describe it is like it was suspended there, like a sheet that had been dragged through mud. It wasn't floating in a graceful way, more like it was just there. Dirty, ragged, a pale shade of off-white, and I could see the dirt and grime creeping down to the ground. No feet, no face, just a vague shape. It was hovering outside my brother's window, like it was watching him. The moment I saw it, it shifted, like it knew I was looking at it. I can't even explain it. It turned, and I swear to you, it saw me. I felt frozen, not just scared, like you might freeze when you're startled, but physically held in place. I couldn't move. My body refused to listen, as if whatever was standing there, floating there, was pressing down on me, keeping me still. It didn't even have eyes that I could see, but I felt its gaze like it was pinning me, like I was some specimen under a microscope. The pressure was unbearable, and it felt like the moment lasted forever. My heart was hammering and I could barely breathe. I wanted to scream or run, but I couldn't. I just stood there, my body rigid, my skin prickling. It was like it was feeding off my fear, and I could do nothing but stand there, paralyzed. Then just as quickly as it had turned, it looked away, back at my brother's window. The suffocating pressure lifted, and I could move again. I didn't waste a second. I turned on my heel and bolted back into the house, slamming the door behind me. I could feel my legs shaking as I stumbled to the back of the house, my heart still racing. But just as I thought I was safe, I heard something. From above, a rustle of wings, sharp and clear. My breath caught in my throat, and I instinctively glanced up through the window. Perched on the large oak tree near the porch was an owl. It wasn't just any owl. It was huge, and its eyes. It felt like it was staring right into me, like it knew what I'd just seen, like it was aware of whatever had been outside. It might sound insane, but in that moment, I swear that owl was protecting me. It wasn't just there by chance. I don't know how I know that, but I felt like it had come in response to whatever had just happened, as if it had somehow driven that thing away. I couldn't explain it, but I felt safe for the first time since I stepped out the door. I didn't go to the store that night. I couldn't. I sat there for the next hour, too scared to even look outside again, my heart still thumping in my chest, unable to shake the feeling that something was watching from just beyond the window. The owl stayed there for a while, but eventually it flew off, disappearing into the night, leaving me with the silence of the house and the unsettling feeling that whatever had been there, whatever that thing was, could return at any moment. I don't know what it was, I can't explain it, but I do know that I'll never forget that night. That thing was real, and whatever it wasn't friendly. Story 9. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who'd end up living in a house like this. I moved into an old, crumbling place on the edge of town, trying to get away from the noise and chaos. The rent was cheap, and I figured it would be fine. Honestly, I wasn't too concerned about the place being haunted, even though I'd heard whispers about it from a few neighbors. The stories were so ridiculous, I didn't think twice about them. That first night, I felt the weight of the silence, the kind that presses in from all sides, like the house is holding its breath. Boxes were scattered everywhere, and I wasn't even close to being unpacked. I laid down on a worn futon mattress I found, just trying to get some rest. My phone was my only distraction, and I was half watching some video when the sensation hit. It wasn't like when your leg falls asleep. This was different. A cold pressure on the top of my head, almost like fingers gently pressing down. Not just a random tingling, but something deliberate, like it was watching me, waiting for me to notice. I didn't react at first, not wanting to give in to the panic. I shrugged it off. Maybe it was just the house settling, or maybe I was imagining things. It wasn't until the pressure grew that I couldn't ignore it. The sensation was clear now, an icy grip wrapping around my skull, moving down my neck, like someone was lightly holding me, but there was no one there. I opened my mouth to say something, but I just couldn't. It was like my body was frozen, like the air itself had turned heavy, suffocating. Finally, I forced myself to move. "Good night," I mumbled out loud, barely able to breathe, and flicked off the light. The room went pitch black. That's when I felt it, the last sensation that stuck with me. The pressure was gone, but it left behind a feeling of something lingering, something that didn't want to leave. I tried to shake it off, closed my eyes, and told myself to sleep. When I woke up, the sunlight was just starting to creep through the gaps in the curtains. My head felt foggy, like I hadn't really slept at all. I sat up and rubbed my eyes, trying to clear the sleep, and that's when I noticed it. The closet door, just barely ajar, like it had been pulled open while I slept. There was no reason for it. I had checked it before going to bed, and there was nothing unusual. Yet there it was, wide enough for me to see the dark, empty space inside. I got up, walked over to it, and pushed the door all the way open, but nothing was inside. Just empty shelves and a faint smell of dust. I stood there for a moment, unsure if I was supposed to feel relieved or more afraid. Nothing else had changed in the room. No sounds, no movements, but I could feel it. That same oppressive weight. It was still there, somewhere in the corners of the house, watching, waiting. It was only then that I realized something deeper. The house wasn't empty. It never had been. Story 10. It was one of those days when everything felt wrong. I was a senior at a small, old high school in a town that had seen better days. The building was ancient, an old mansion that had been turned into an orphanage before becoming the high school we attended. The place was filled with strange corners, weird hallways, and that musty, almost forgotten smell. The most unnerving part was the third floor, which was off limits. The stairwell was blocked off, sealed with black painted wood, just another forgotten part of the school's bizarre history. One fall evening, we were preparing for our school's production of Les Miserables. It was around 6 p.m., just before practice started, and a group of us, me, Ryan, Mike, and Michelle, decided to sneak up to the third floor. We had nothing better to do, and honestly, the idea of exploring an abandoned part of the school was more exciting than sitting around waiting for rehearsal to begin. The staircase was barely holding together, crumbling under years of neglect. We carefully made our way up, each step creaking in a way that made me nervous. It felt like something was watching us, but I brushed it off as nerves. When we got to the top, there was a long, narrow hallway. The rooms along the sides were unremarkable. Old storage closets, disused classrooms, and a big open space filled with nothing but dusty desks and stacks of old papers. We figured it wasn't as exciting as we'd hoped, but the rumors about the place being haunted by the spirits of orphans who had once lived there kept us from laughing it off too easily. I remember standing in the middle of the room, looking around at the stacks of yellowed papers, thinking, this is it? Then, like an idiot, I had the idea to mess with Michelle. I pushed Mike and Ryan into a small side room, and we hid behind the door. I figured we'd jump out and scare her when she came looking for us. You know, a typical prank. Sure enough, after a few moments, Michelle came walking through the hallway, looking around, probably wondering where we had gone. She got closer to the room we were hiding in, and I held my breath, ready to jump out and yell. But then something strange happened. I heard Michelle shout, "Fuck you guys, this isn't funny!" And she came running out of the room, looking like she was about to burst a vein. We were all trying not to laugh, but just as I was about to step out, we heard a sound that made my stomach drop. It was a giggle, a soft, high-pitched giggle, the kind of giggle you hear from a little kid, except it came from inside the tiny room we were hiding in. My blood ran cold. I turned to Mike and Ryan, expecting them to be in on it, but both of them were standing there, eyes wide, their hands over their mouths. It wasn't either of them. I don't know how to describe it, but everything in that room felt wrong. The giggle wasn't from Michelle. I knew her voice, and it wasn't her. There was no one else in the building at the time. The giggle echoed in that small room like it was bouncing off the walls, getting louder and closer. And then, like an idiot, I thought maybe it was a trick. Maybe someone had slipped up here before we did. But there was no explanation for what happened next. Another giggle. This time, it was joined by a second one, then a third. There were multiple giggles, as if a group of children had somehow gotten up there before us. But we were the only ones up on that floor, and this place had been sealed off for years. There was no way anyone else was up there, especially not kids. At that moment, my heart was pounding in my chest. I could feel the sweat pooling at the back of my neck. Mike was the first to break. He let out this terrified gasp and pushed past me, slamming the door open and nearly knocking me over. Ryan followed, his face pale, eyes wide. They both ran out of the room, their feet pounding down the hallway. And I stood there for a second, frozen in place, too scared to move. I don't know what happened next. Maybe it was the adrenaline, but suddenly everything felt too close, too real. The giggles didn't stop. They kept echoing in that tiny room, as if whatever was inside there was laughing at us. It was as if the sound was pulling me in. And for a moment, I thought about going to check it out. I had this insane urge to just walk in there and see who was making those sounds. But something held me back. Then Ryan's scream cut through the air. It wasn't a scream of fear, though. It was more like a scream of pure, undiluted terror, the kind of scream that makes your skin crawl. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like everything in the world had just collapsed in on him. I heard his voice echoing down the hallway, but it wasn't his voice anymore. It was high-pitched, like he'd lost control of himself. He tore down the stairs, not even looking back, nearly knocking Michelle over as he bolted out of the building. I didn't hesitate after that. I followed him, running down the rotting staircase as fast as I could, not caring about the wood creaking and splintering beneath my feet. I could hear chunks of it falling off, but I didn't stop. My feet barely touched the steps as I flew down to the ground floor, where I burst into the hallway, out of breath and shaking. We all met in the lobby, faces pale, eyes wide, still trying to make sense of what had just happened. The maintenance crew must have heard us running because they gave us a talking to about safety, about the rotted steps. They knew we'd been up there, but they didn't know what had happened. None of us dared to go back. The third floor was sealed off again not long after that. They replaced the windows and the doors were locked for good. We didn't talk about it much after that. In fact, I don't think we ever did.